Alrighty.
Hello. So, how do you go by? How can I call you?
Just call me Tundra. Tundra works good. And
All
then I
right,
assume
Tundra.
Battlefield philosophy for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep. Or you call me BP for short.
BP works better. Yeah.
All right. So, what's on your mind? I know that you're telling me about your ethics and that you're talking about vegetarianism. And did you want to get more into that?
Yeah. So as far as like ethics go, I think recently I like kind of I like beat myself up a lot. I have like really high standards for myself, and I like often fail to meet those standards. And I've also been like on a self improvement journey and trying to like make myself a better person, just fix things in my life. And I often am overly harsh on myself. But as far as like the ethics goes, I just got like a little mind fucked by it because I sometimes I do this thing where I pretty much imagine myself as every person I interact with. Like I basically like try to put my mind into their mind and try to like construct their perspective the best I can with whatever information I have. And I try to be aware of how I'm interacting with people and the positive or negative consequences that can result from that. And then I started trying to do this um really like in-depth like butterfly effect analysis, like where I was trying to like think of like all possible negative consequences, and I was trying to like match or like align my actions perfectly with certain outcomes. And then I'm like, how like obviously intent matters, but I
So,
was
can you
beating
give me an
myself up.
example of this? Can you give me an example?
Hmm. So like something I've thought about is like um being nice but it has a bad outcome, or being mean and it has a good outcome. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you have to, because
Well,
I felt like
I
I
can get
had.
into so in the mental and health field that we actually discuss when it's okay to lie, which is a very interesting moral
Mm-hmm.
conundrum. And so, when it comes to the Hippocratic Oath, right, the "I shall do no harm" kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
we've discovered that if we tell, so let's say we have a patient, and this patient is completely fucked, right? Like this patient terminally ill, they have cancer, they have something that's completely they are doomed, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we tell them that, if we tell this patient they're doomed, they have a 1% chance of living, they have a 5% chance of living. What actually we've found is that percentage actually decreases if we tell them that. And so what we found is that if
Mm-hmm.
we lie to them and say, "Hey, Tundra, uh, you have a good chance of living. You have a 80% chance of living." Then what happens is, even if your chance was 5%, if I tell you and I lie to you that it's 80%, your chance of living goes up from 5% to a higher number. And so
Yeah.
then that's like, well, then if I'm a person who is to do no harm, why would I say something to you to decrease your chances of living?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I also came to a similar conclusion with certain interactions, that there's kind of like a difference between complete raw honesty, which can lead to like negative outcomes. But you just always have to know, like, if you're gonna lie, or maybe like lie by omission, you have to make sure that your intent is there. Like you have to know that like
And you're
you're not
speaking for
doing
yourself
it.
right now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I always try to align my intent. Like I have to always like kind of double check with myself. Like, am I doing this for me, or am I genuinely doing this because I think this will be a better outcome for the other person?
Right, and there's
Um,
also that social exchange where we have to make sure that uh, what I'm getting and what you're getting, or what the other person's getting, is a good exchange, or else it might lead to codependency or dependency. Uh, so I also want to get back to when you're saying you felt mind fucked or overly harsh, you beat yourself up. I know that those were three descriptors you used.
yeah. So I try to take in people's perspective. I try to imagine myself as other people. It's like a very egalitarian perspective of like relative, like relative perspective, because you can fall down that trap of like thinking like, okay, well, a different perceiver comes to a different conclusion. And so, who am I to say that the conclusion I came to is the right one? And every conscious agent within the system of the universe has a perception of the world. And so what I was trying to do was think of like a social structure, like governmental structure that could perhaps include the view of each agent in the system, so that like I was basically trying to think of like a harmonizing like some utopia or something. Like I know it's not possible now, but I was trying to think like how can I like please the most amount of people? Like how can I like
And this is another thing we're getting into where in the past you have said you wanted to make a YouTube channel, right?
yeah, so I do want to make a YouTube channel. I'm a little scared to take the leap and to like start making content, but I want to be a positive influence on the world. I want to plant trees for the future generations. One day I want to be a teacher. I'm not sure how, or like
Do you know
what that
what?
trajectory is going to look like.
Have you
Hmm.
ever heard of toxic positivity?
I have not, but I can only assume that's going to apply to me in a way. Let's talk about it.
So,
Let's talk
toxic
about it.
positivity, there's a book that
Uh-huh.
talks about this, and it's called Rethinking Positive Thinking. And so,
Hmm.
her name is Gabrielle Otegan, if I got it correctly, but
Hmm.
she's this very amazing female researcher, which is pretty rare out there. There's not very many of them, but she's great at what she does. And what she does is she has this psych lab, and in her psych lab, she was testing different mental modalities. She was testing different motivations and different intentions in completing
Hmm.
goals. So she would have uh, patients come in to do these studies, and then she would ask them what are their main goals in life. And so she made different clusters. So one cluster would be like, oh, I'm trying to get into a relationship. Another cluster would go, I'm trying to lose weight. Another cluster is, oh, I'm trying to get a job, right? So all these clusters of
Hmm.
people have a different tangible aspiration that is undeniably healthy for them, or like the
Hmm.
next step forward in their life. And then she would ask them what is their perspective and what is their outlook on getting that. So then there'd be ones that she would code into being pessimistic. There's some that are positive about it, some are optimistic about it, some are realistic, some are very laissez-faire about it, some are very overbearing about it. And so she would start creating these clusters within the clusters of what type of mental frame is the best in actually achieving the goal. So she would ask them about their perspective, and then in some time later, she'd bring them back in and ask them if they actually achieved their goals based on their mental frame. And
Hmm.
so she found that the the people that were optimistic and very positive were actually a lower chance than some of the pessimistic people, or a very poor chance. Because what she finds is that when someone is thinking very positively about the future and going, oh, I'm going to be great, I'm going to make a YouTube channel, I'm going to be really awesome, I'm just going to be helping all these people and this and that, very, very, very optimistic, what happens is it's almost like we're having this waking dream where our body, since we are thinking about it, our body releases endorphins as if we've already achieved it.
Mm.
And then what
Yeah.
happens is, after we release those endorphins, she found that their blood pressure would plummet. And then because a part of them would think that they've actually achieved it just because they're visualizing the such a great future.
Hmm.
So when their blood pressure would go down when they envisioned such a great outcome, then what would happen is they would have low energy because low blood pressure means low energy. And then after they had low energy, then they wouldn't actually do anything. So it's like they would have this almost mental masturbation where they would, in their mind, they achieved it, but then they had no real plan or steps. And so what she found was the best way to do it is called the WOOP method, which is WOOP. Have you heard of this before?
I believe I heard you mention it one time in passing, but no, please explain.
Yeah, so WOOP. So the W is for wish. So people are supposed to write down their wish for the future. So like you would write down, I wish I had a YouTube channel that would like help a lot of people or something like that, right? So that's your wish. And
Mhm.
then your outcome is kind of that already, where outcome is that you are affecting people for the better, that people are having better perceptions. Like write down the outcome that you would want to have if you had it. And then after you think
Mhm.
about your outcome, then you have to get real and you have to think about the obstacles, right? So then the second O is obstacles. And so you write
Okay.
down your obstacles that are in your way. And then the P is plan. So then you write down your plan of how do you plan to start making steps forward to that. And then the next time you think of your whoop plan, you just go, you just you rinse and repeat. So you go back to your wish, because sometimes people's wishes might change after they done their plan the first time. So
Mhm.
if you're going, okay, I really want to do a channel, do all these great things, and you go, oh wait, hold on, I want to do a channel that just debates, just to have an open forum conversation, and then your outcome might change. But that plan, she says, had the greatest success in people actually reaching their wishes. So the people that wished they would lose weight, they would wish that they'd see the outcome that, oh, they would have better energy, they'd look better, they would girls would get them more, or guys would like them more, whatever. And then the obstacles were like, oh, the obstacles in the way is they're not spending time, and they're not putting on their shoes to go walking, they're not going to the gym. So those are like the obstacles in their way. And the plan is like, okay, I have to on my schedule have to say, okay, at this time on this day, my plan is to sign up and go into the gym and sign up for a personal coach, or what are they called? Um,
Personal trainer.
yeah, like a fitness coach. Yeah, yeah, personal trainer. Yeah, exactly. And so they do that plan, and then they have to reevaluate after every single cycle. So like maybe the cycles every week they reevaluate their Whoop plan to see if they actually achieved anything. And if they don't achieve anything, they have to change one of those four things. They either have to change what they wish, they have to change what they want the outcome to be, because outcome relates to expectations. And a lot of
Mhm.
times people have unreasonable expectations, right?
Yeah.
So if their outcome is like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds this week, that might be too high of expectations. And then if the
Mhm.
obstacle is like they think everybody's in their way, and they realize, well, actually, no one's really in their way, it's just them. And then the plan, if they never have any plan, no plan's the worst plan. Um, so when it comes, so I'm going full circle back to your whole idea of getting your YouTube channel and your positive thinking. You're like very positive on what you want to do, but you really haven't like made any sort of plan to do that. Like, do you have a YouTube channel yet?
I have the channel. It is a blank slate right now.
With
Um,
no subscribers.
no, nothing, nothing yet. Um,
So I want to ask you, what's the fear? Like, what are some of the fears that's holding you back right now?
I guess the fear of being in the public eye, but because
Public eye.
I guess a fear of failure as well, especially in the public eye. Because I consume a lot of YouTube content, and people can make themselves look like buffoons sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be one of those people that goes in ill prepared, uninformed, and look like a buffoon. So I guess I have that fear.
Your fear is related to shame,
Yeah, yeah.
because you fear, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you fear that you're gonna post a video, and then people in the public are gonna go, "Oh wow, look at Tundra, he is a buffoon," and then you're gonna feel shame from that,
Yeah, yep,
right? And
spot
that's
on.
because you care a lot about what other people think about you, right?
Yes, yeah.
And
Um,
and whenever time someone brings up the FOF, which is the fear of failure, I got to also bring up the fear of missing out, the FOMO, right?
mhm.
And so I think I told you this in the past, where your fear of missing out has to overcome the fear of failure.
Yeah,
Because wouldn't it be terrible if your fear of failure prevents you from even having any greatness? That you never try, and trying means to accept the chance of failure, right?
100%. And I know that my because I can't explain it exactly, but I can just tell there's something within me that like I know I could do great things. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the public eye, but I know I can achieve. I I can just feel it and I am determined.
Do you think you're a higher level now than you were a year ago?
Oh, 100%. I'm constantly evolving.
And
It's
how'd you
and
get there?
hmm,
Like how did you level up between last year and this year?
I guess just consuming more information, experiencing adult life more, contextualizing everything, becoming more realistic, realizing the like work needed to get the outcomes I want. I it's that's a hard question to answer,
Well,
but
I think you answered it correctly. And I'll,
yeah,
it's a one word experience. Just like in video
yeah,
games, more experience I get in my character, I get levels up. So in the same way, humans are the same thing, where more experience in the real world or experiencing information and knowledge with books or what have you, more experience we get, the more we level up. And so in the same way, where if you have no experience posting videos, then you're not going to really level up. So I think that if you post more videos, you have to kind of, instead of fearing getting those failures, you have to see you have to lose to get experience. So instead of trying to like aim for the win,
yeah,
try to be like, okay, you need to post 100 videos that are very uh, not interesting or very regular.
yeah.
Because it's not like it's not necessarily like you fear losing necessarily. You kind of fear mediocrity, right? Do you fear mediocrity?
Oh, oh yeah, yes. I think that's why a lot of or where a lot of my ambition is centered is I don't know how far back this goes, but
Well, do you think that mediocrity relates to failure?
yeah, unfortunately, I don't want to be average. I don't want to be mediocre, and I know I won't be. But like, not that there's. It's kind of hard to say in one breath that like, oh, I don't want to be mediocre, but I guess there's nothing wrong with being average. It's kind of hard to, but I I just know that I can do stuff. I just know I can achieve, and I have to get past the analysis paralysis because I spend a lot of time thinking, and action is something I need to do more. And like how you talked about with your Whoop method and writing stuff down, I need to do that. I bought a bunch of whiteboards. I want to like what I wanted to do is clean up my environment. Like after I read Atomic Habits, which I need to reread, amazing book. Um, I want to clean up my environment and just manage my time well and start taking action because I I don't want to let the time slip by. Like I know I can do stuff. I have such a passion for information consumption and I know I could put it to good use. I just actually have to get past the fear and start taking action. Like I know all the things I need to do. Now I just have to do it.
Right, because it's like anytime someone has depression or anxiety, the solution is always to do something about it.
Hmm.
Because if we don't do anything about it, then it just gets worse.
Yeah.
So anytime, because so it seems like, so do you think you have more depression or anxiety about posting it?
Hmm. I would say anxiety probably, but anxiety and depression are not they're relatively new emotions or yeah, emotions for me. I like experienced anxiety for the first time like within this past year. Like I've never like labeled that emotion before.
Right,
And then I've like
it's the fear of the future.
yes, I that's what I've heard is depression is thinking about the past and anxiety is thinking about the future.
This is a really good topic that I've actually brought up in my Twitter, where it's almost like we're looking into a crystal ball, and
Hmm.
inside the crystal ball where is our future, and in our future we're still looking at the crystal ball still.
Yeah, gotta
So
live in the
it's
present
like
moment.
we got to stop looking into the crystal ball and actually do stuff so that way our future does have changes. So it's the whole idea that sometimes the superpower of looking into the future is not as good as we thought it was. Because if we only keep trying to use our superpower to look into the future, then we actually don't do anything. Because now when we look
Mm,
into the future, we just see ourselves look into the past.
mm,
So it's like
no.
we have to put down the crystal ball every now and then, right? We only are supposed to use the crystal ball like a wizard. We write down onto a scroll, figuratively speaking, right?
Mhm.
So as a wizard, we look into the crystal ball. We see where our reality will become if we continue our current path. Then we write down the wishes, the outcomes, the obstacles, and the plans. And then we start carrying out those plans when we told ourselves we were going to do it. You know, the walking or talking, right?
Mhm.
But if we're a wizard that just constantly looks at the crystal ball, then we're never really going to lead to any future. We're just leading to the future of us always looking into the future.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
Gotta balance it out.
And I know that in the past when I brought up leveling up experience, fear of failure, you had kind of hinted that this goes back to your past. Did you have more to say about that for your past?
Oh, just that this has like been a long um thought process of like I just always hated the thought of being average. I just needed to distinguish myself. And I wonder where that really comes from. Because I've never really been average, but I've never been like top tier. I've always probably been like around
Can we
like
talk
the
about your childhood a little bit?
sure.
So, how was your childhood?
I would say good.
Out
Um
of 10, 10 being great, 0 being it's terrible.
hmm that's like a 7?
7
I'm
out of
not I'm
10.
not sure how to quantify that, but 7.
And
We'll
then
go with
your
7.
parents, how were they? Your mother and are they still together?
No, my parents are not still together. Um, I have so I have lesbian parents.
Okay.
Um, my dad left before I was born,
Okay.
and my mom married a woman, and that woman adopted me.
Okay.
They then divorced, and then both remarried. So
Okay.
I had four moms for a while, which is
Oh, wait, she
an
married a different woman?
so both of them remarried other women. So yes, so they divorced, but because the my we'll just call her uh I don't know what to call her because I don't want to give like super identifying information,
Sure,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my adopted mom, since she legally adopted me, when they split, like that's like she's it's as if she's like my guardian, like she's like my dad, and so
Did
they
she have to
both
pay child
remarried.
support? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, she did, yeah. So
Interesting.
um So yeah, I had four moms for a while, and then
So, to back up a little bit, so you never really knew your father, right?
no, never met my father,
Okay.
never.
And your biological mother, how would you rate her out of 10 when it comes to parenting you?
Um, Probably like a 6 or 7, somewhere around there.
6 or 7. Okay. And then her first wife, that she divorced later, how was that person?
6 or 7. I, I have an interesting relationship with her. Um,
Well, can you put one over the other? Like
I well,
which one would you say is better, your biological mother or the first girl that she married?
I wouldn't put one over the other. I would have the most allegiance to my biological mother, but they suited different roles, and I think they were both very integral parts of making me who I am. So I couldn't disentangle that, but yeah, I have different relationships with both of them. It's been a while because I don't actually talk to my family that much anymore. I'm pretty I'm kind of living my own life right now.
Right. I mean,
I don't
you're kind of
yeah.
that age too. When I was your age, I did that. I moved 800 miles away to just kind of prove myself that I could make it in the world. But
Yeah.
and I did. But so you said that your mother, your biological mother, she divorced her her
My adopted mother.
yeah, your adopted mother, and then remarried another woman, right?
Yeah.
And how is that second? How do you want me to refer to this person? Deborah, Franny,
um, let's just say,
uh, I'm just making a random names up now. Brittany,
well, let's just go with
I'll just make up random names, by the way.
let's just call her Jolene.
Okay, so how about let's just do
So
like
it's
like a
stepmom one.
so that's the one that she's currently married to,
Yes, they are currently married.
Jolene, and then the one before that that was divorced. How do we refer to her?
Amanda.
Okay, sure. And then I'm writing them down so I can keep track. And then your mother will go by just mother, as like your main mother.
Sure, biological
Yeah,
mother.
yeah. Uh, so Jolene, how do you rate her out of 10?
Six out of seven. I'm gonna give
Oh,
everyone like a 6 or 7.
my gosh. Okay.
I, it feels a little uncomfortable rating my parents, but yeah, that's what I put. I'm
Well, this is a thing I like to do because it helps people try to like explain why they gave that number. But if
yeah,
you give them all the same number, then you kind of
yeah.
get out of this whole system I'm trying to put
Fair
you
enough.
into.
Fair
So if you had
enough.
to give them all different numbers, like if you had
Okay.
if someone were to like be twisting your arm and telling you you have to tell me which one's over which one would you put
Mhm.
over each other?
Okay. I would actually do that order of biological,
At the
then Amanda, then Jolene. So like pretty much like chronological order,
Okay.
pretty much. So yeah.
And what are some main things that you learned from your mom?
My biological mother didn't really teach me or not once. She didn't really teach me much. She's just always been a supporter.
And
If
what was the explanation on why your father left?
I don't actually really talk to my mom much about it, but I believe it was like crime and drugs. I think
Oh,
he like went to jail or something like that. Um, I haven't really looked into it. I don't really care about him or like talking to him. So
and so who was your father figure if he's not in the picture?
my grandpa and my uncle were my father figures growing up.
So your G-pa
Yeah, I was very close with
and
both
your
my grandpa and
uncle.
uncle. Yeah,
Okay, so they're kind of like your fatherly mentors,
yeah, they were both kind of like a half dad.
and you still
And
talk to them, right?
yes.
Okay. And how would you rank them?
Okay. I'll give. I'm gonna give like everyone sixes.
How about this? So who do you think spoiled you the most? How about that? Is there anyone that spoiled
Spoiled
you?
me.
Yeah, was there anyone that
Um,
spoiled you?
I don't think I was ever really spoiled, but I was well supported. Um,
Right, and that's the part of spoiling of do you think you were
Probably
too supported at times?
maybe my grandma on my adopted mom's side.
Hmm.
She probably spoiled me the most, but I don't think I was ever really spoiled, but I was very well supported and well provided for.
So I wanted to get more. I kind of want to change gears now because I don't think I'm really finding anything there. But I want to ask you a question of if you could live
Sure.
forever, would you want to?
No, I would not want to live forever, but I would want to live longer.
Can you help me understand that?
So, living forever sounds like an absolute burden of seeing everyone around you die and then
Around you die. Yeah.
just because it just sounds depressing living for forever. having to be in existence experiencing for like all of time. Gosh, that sounds fucking horrible. Um like I'm sure the first couple thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands of years would be fun, but like after a while, oh no, that sounds horrible. But I would want to live longer. That's for sure.
So you're saying that you don't want to live forever because it'd mean you'd have to see loved ones die around you, is what you're adding to the frame.
That's that's a reason, but probably not the primary reason. I guess it just sounds painful. Like I don't know how else to explain it besides like eternal life. Like what would you even do? I feel like you would just get bored and depressed and just like
Well,
I don't know, it just
you're
sounds
doing a lot of this
painful.
U language again, which means you haven't really
Mm.
processed this that much.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought of it. It's an interesting question. I haven't thought of the reasons for why I wouldn't want to, but my gut instinct would be living forever. That does not sound good.
Hmm. Well, what do you think would be the worst part about it, other than the seeing people around you die?
Think you would just see the like cycle of civilizations and see all the pain and death and destruction over time of like humans fighting and going to war. You would like live throughout all of history, and
That's the I language. You have to say I language because you're talking about your own.
I would live throughout all of history, and I would see all the destruction that humans cause and like civilizations rise and fall.
Do you think you need
And
other people to validate your ideas?
hmm, do I need other people to validate my ideas? It's a good question. Yes, but so I think I need to build the confidence to know that my ideas are good, regardless of whether others agree. Because there's going to be times where you're in a room full of people and everyone's
When
going
when
to
I'm
think
when
about
I'm
something.
when I'm
When I'm in a room full of people, there's going to be times, and this has happened before, when I'm in a room full of people and everyone will disagree with you, and you have to stand up straight and be like,
with
yeah,
me. You're doing U language again.
I have to. This is a bad habit of mine because I guess I try to generalize things for like.
I can go into why that you and I is so important if you want me to.
Sure, we could get into. I feel like there would be more important things to talk about, but we could get into that at some point, or we could always circle back if we like
Sure.
get to a point. But I feel like I need to build inner confidence in my ideas because I think I'm pretty smart. Like I can come up with decent ideas, and other people would sometimes disagree. And I feel like I need to build that inner confidence to enter a room full of people. And if they're not well versed on a topic or informed, and all of them are agreeing, and you have to have that confidence to be like, even though all of you agree, you're all wrong. But sometimes having validation of your ideas is useful, and getting feedback and knowing that someone else
And have
agrees.
you
And
convinced yourself of that?
have I convinced myself of
Yeah, because
which
it's
part?
hard for you. It seems like it's difficult for Tundra to say
Mhm.
I language to own that. It's almost like you're saying you language so that way it protects you from saying
Mm.
I.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten that far yet. I know I need to. I need to build that confidence because I've fallen in like the nice guy people pleaser trap in the past.
Have you ever heard
You
of
know,
Deepak Chopra?
I've not. That sounds
He's
interesting.
this like guru. Some of it's kind of foo foo, but other stuff is actually really legit. Where he talks about what is I, and he goes really
Mhm.
deeply into uh, that, trying to reassociate ourselves with ourselves, because a lot of people are very disassociated, and so it's very difficult for a lot of people to own their own feelings, to own their own thoughts, to take a stand in life, because they're used to at work kind of not taking
Yeah,
sides, being very guarded, but then when they leave their work, they still have that heavy suppression.
Yeah, I definitely need to be able to take a stand because I have some controversial ideas, and I don't like to ruffle feathers. I want people to like me, but there's sometimes I hear people say things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so wrong. And I went through a phase in life where I went deep down the like political debate rabbit hole, like I just listened to debates like all day. And for me it was like fun. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to debate people. I want to go into like the marketplace of ideas and I want to test and like stress test my ideas against other people. I want to hear their side of the argument and I want to like converse back and forth." Because I went through a phase where I would just listen to debates all day and I wanted to like consume as much like back and forth as possible and analyze a situation from multiple angles. And I always kind of thought, well, what I could do is hold on to ideas, not too concretely, and don't tie my emotions to an idea. Because you want to tie your emotions to the outcome, not the process. So hold on to ideas and then always be willing to let them go when the next idea comes along. So I kind of always had this like philosophy of have an idea, debate and stress test it. And if that idea fails, then you grab onto the idea that defeated it. And then it's like a never ending process of stress testing and then assuming the better idea.
So I've
And
noticed that you say the word like a lot.
yes, I probably need to work on
And
that.
I
I,
think
I
that's
do.
because it's almost as if it's a teenager habit of lack of confidence,
Yeah.
that if they say like, or it's kind of like this, it's kind of like that, sort of, what it does it allows them to say things and still have that out. The well, I didn't really even
Yeah.
think that really. So it's like it's trying. It's the mechanism of not really wanting to take a side, because if you don't take a side, then you don't have much to defend. And so the more lack of confidence you put out there into the world, the less you have to support yourself. But if you say a lot of things without saying like, then
Hmm.
it makes it seem like you are all in. So it makes it feel worse if someone exposes you for having some sort of like terrible idea.
Yeah, that's a good observation and something I definitely need to work on because I need to build confidence and I need to get more, I guess, assertive with my ideas, or
So
at
there's
least
there's
like
one concept I want to bring up with you is giving yourself permission to fail.
mm,
What do you think about that?
yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. 100%. I think that's something I need to do because like I see in the I through a lot of like consuming information, I see people fail and people are just genuinely uninformed about a lot of topics before going into something. And I see that happen and I get like secondhand shame almost. And I'm like, "Oh, I feel so bad for this person. Like they were very unprepared and now it's on display."
We have a.
And
It seems like you have a lot of feelings that change your perception.
hmm, can you give a specific example?
Well, you just told me. You said you get secondhand shame from people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it seems to me that you are allowing yourself to be controlled by feelings rather than thought.
Yeah. This this definitely happened more recently too, as I started trying to analyze perspective a lot, and I would like imagine myself as other people, and then I started noticing that my emotions would almost become entangled with my perceived perspective of someone else, and it's like my levels of empathy and compassion went up a lot when I started like trying to like look at the world through other people's eyes and
And,
like
and, and you've
empathize with
discussed to me
them.
in the past where you have this cycle of where you might get wrong and then you change your perspective and then that new perspective might be wrong and then you change that perspective, right? That's what you mentioned.
Yeah.
So when that does happen, how does that feel when you realize that you're wrong and then you change your perspective?
Hmm. since I've been practicing tying to the outcome and not the process, it hurts like it's a sting, but it's actually not that bad because I just like I keep moving forward and I'm like, and I guess I need to generalize that to more aspects, but like it hurts to be wrong, but if I have the constant growth perspective or of like whatever information I come across, I always feel like I'm refining and
Well,
building more
it
knowledge.
seems as though the fear of shame is worse than the actual shame that comes when you are actually in the moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're right.
so I mean, if you're saying something that ends up being wrong, it's better to say it with confidence and then someone point it out to you and then you go, oh, my bad, and then just change your mind. But what's worse is when you're giving your points and you're not even convinced of it yourself on how you say it. If you say some stuff
Yeah,
with upward inflections, you say like and I don't know and like and I don't know, then when you're trying to sell stuff, no one really wants to buy it because no one believes that you buy your own ideas.
yeah.
So if you don't buy your own beliefs, why should anyone else?
Hmm. Yeah,
So it,
that's a really good point.
so when you talk, I want to make sure that you try to own what you believe, even
Okay.
though you I might say something that might change your mind, and that's okay. That the sky isn't going to fall.
Yeah.
That when you actually do feel the shame, it's actually not as bad. And so the number one thing to avoid is panic. Panic
Hmm.
is the number one thing I've been telling my girlfriend and everybody that ever tries to when they're dealing with feelings versus thoughts is that panic is when people stop being able to think correctly. Because when we panic, it activates our amygdala. It's a hijack of our amygdala of our brain where we get into that fight, freeze, fawn response. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So there's four. So in flight mode, we just want to run away and say, "Oh, I really didn't mean anything. Okay, bye." And then fight is when we kind of have this spurging moment where we just want to clap back onto the person. We have this outburst. A conniption. A conniption is like, "Oh, what? That's a conniption. It's a kind of this outburst that has no real meaning behind it.
Hmm.
And then freeze is when we just all of a sudden go quiet. And then fawn is when we just agree with whatever anyone else around us is saying to no longer be on the opposition side by just agreeing with whoever people are saying. So that's the fawn response. So, but
Hmm.
that it gets activated when we panic. And what panic also does is it makes us not breathe. We hold our breath. And so, one thing that I tell everyone that does have these moments of panic is to focus on our breath
Hmm.
and to realize that silence does not necessarily mean weakness, especially when the silence is 5 seconds, 3 seconds. But for some reason, the ego is telling us we should be ashamed if we have a pause for 5 seconds, or if I say, "Hey, Tundra, can I think about that for a little bit?" For some
Hmm.
reason, the ego convinces us that that's a weakness. And so panic thinks that we're not even allowed to breathe. And so what I tell people is that nothing is worth not breathing. And so when something panics you and you don't know what to say in the moment, still breathe and think about it. And then if they go, "Wait, why are you quiet?" Just say, "Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about it." Now, our brain might think other people think we're stupid, but actually, what other people are thinking is how smart they are for getting you. They're not thinking, "Oh man, Tuntra's so stupid." Normally, people will think, "Oh, I got him, and I'm a smart person for getting him." They don't think,
Hmm.
"Oh my gosh, he's terrible." Because remember, at that moment, Tuntra never said anything terrible. He's just taking time to think about it, which is actually a positive thing. People that take time to think about things is actually a virtue.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually a positive. If I'm talking to someone and they take no time to pause, they're just diary of the mouth.
Hmm.
They like to talk to hear themselves talk. That's a negative. But if You take 3 seconds to breathe through things. It actually helps you have more oxygen intake. And so it's what's called strategic silence. Strategic silence helps other people process and myself process. It also
Mm.
helps me get the oxygen that's needed to fuel my brain. So there's a lot of people that they have run-on sentences. And
Mhm.
then those run-on sentences get worse because they're panicking, then they're getting less breathing, less oxygen, so they have less thinking because they have less oxygen. And so that panic is the very beginning thing they have to face. What do you think about what I've been talking about so far?
Sounds interesting and something that I need to incorporate when I communicate. Right now, I'm a little overwhelmed because I've been trying to upgrade my communication style, and there's many variables that I have to adjust. So I need to adjust them. So instead of just like throwing it all and like, all right, I got to do like 15 different things, I've been trying to slowly adjust one variable at a time. And then when it becomes habitual, then introduce more variables. But that definitely sounds like something I need to work on. Communication is something that I feel is like I greatly need to improve.
So if instead of saying like, you just paused,
Mm.
what do you
Did I,
think
I
is.
did I say like there multiple
Yeah, you said
times?
it multiple times, yeah.
Ah, I didn't even notice.
Right.
Ah,
Yeah, it's a
mm,
crutch. It's a crutch. It's a
yeah.
crutch because the mind codes it into kind of this band-aid or into this like I said crutch where it's I said like so I'm a lot less confident so I can say whatever I want because I'm at least demonstrating I have lack of confidence. So I can weasel out of it because I've already given myself this out of I'm not even confident about it anyway. But if I don't say the word like, then it makes it seem like I'm all in, which is this borderline personality disorder indication of I can't be this middle ground that borderline personality is more of this they're either all in or all out and there's no middle ground. So what I recommend is being comfortable with taking a stand and then being willing to tell people you're not confident about it if you're not, but not to do these like stuff because the like thing is very it's like what teenagers do.
Mm.
I do it sometimes, usually when I'm talking to people that do it, and I'm trying to stop doing it when I talk with you. Because whenever I do it, then you start doing it more, and whenever you do it, I do it more, and it's just a crutch.
Yeah.
It's almost as if I say the word fuck too much. Then all of a sudden, all of my words start becoming that, and I have a lot less descriptors.
Mm.
So if you substitute like with something else, it expands your vocabulary, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
This is what's called CI therapy. CI therapy is constrained induced therapy, where we force ourselves to change our speech, and in tune that changes our thoughts. So if we were saying too much or like too much or other things that are crutch words, if we pause and focus on controlling our speech, then it can help our thoughts get less cluttered and a lot more precise.
Yeah, that is. I think it's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. I probably butchered the name,
How
but
do you
I
spell
think
it?
I have no clue how to spell it. It's really awkward spelling. It's like Sapir. I don't know. Let me
You said Saffir
look.
Ward? What?
Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's Sapir Sapir Whorf WHORF hypothesis, and I think it discusses that like th- oh, there we go. I just did it. I just did it right there. It discusses how the words you use or like the words you think in your mind it's like a feedback loop
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah. Where
yeah,
it's how we say things changes our attitude, and what we say changes our thoughts.
yeah, and so I've been trying to like reprogram and reformat how I think and what I say or hmm.
So I
More
want to
like
get
how
back into this. I want to get back more into this stuff of. So you fear shame, right?
yes,
Because you care about what other people think about, right?
yes, and I've been trying
Now,
to.
what if someone thinks poorly of you, but for bad reasons? Like they go, "Oh my gosh, Tundra, he's stupid," and then you ask them, "Well, why do they think that Tundra is stupid?" And then they say, "Oh, cause he eats too much broccoli." And then we go, "What? Why would I listen to what this stupid person's saying?" So then it's we can discount people's insults, or we can discount other people uh, in their insults or how they're trying to shame us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, of course, like if someone doesn't have a good reasoning for why they think a certain thing, you can discount their view on that topic. It seems a little harsh to be like, ah, this person's stupid, so I don't care about what they think. But, if someone doesn't have good reasoning for whatever conclusion they arrived at, then yeah, you wouldn't want to accept that conclusion.
Well, because you said you fear shame, and so if you were to post on YouTube, YouTube viewers might write in
Hmm.
the comments something, and what would you
Yeah.
think would be in the comments? They say something that would make you get shame,
Mm.
like because that's what I want to explore. Because one of the things that we're talking about is you're wanting to
Yeah.
actually do post stuff, and then you're saying, well, you fear you're going to post something, and someone's going to go, oh my gosh, Tundra is blank, and then I'm trying to understand what that is that you fear them thinking about you.
Yeah. Mm. I guess I don't have like specific comments in mind, but like
It's more of the fear of the
gosh,
unknown.
I just said like again.
It seems like
Um,
it's a fear of the unknown.
yeah, yeah, perhaps. Hmm. Give me 1 second to think.
Okay, great.
I don't think it's the fear of the unknown. I think it's tied to still caring about how others think, even though in the back of my mind, I know I need to develop more confidence and conviction within myself and care less about what other people think, especially people who can't substantiate their criticisms. But for some reason, I still care about what other people think, and that's been a big issue for me. I know I need to fix that because I know that I have great ideas. I know that I stress test them. I try to give an appropriate level of conviction based upon my level of research. And I've been in arguments where I know I'm more well researched than the other person. I can tell in how they navigate the topic. I can tell based upon the information that they present that they obviously have a more elementary understanding of the topic than I do. Not that I per se have like a really good, like masterful understanding, but it's at least steps ahead of theirs. And I'm still like caveating and qualifying and not confident enough. And I still care what they think. And I just have to get past that. And I
Do you
know
think
I
you have
can.
a do you think you have an inferiority complex?
And I'm inferior?
Yeah, so there's the superiority complex, but then there's people that think that having a superiority complex is like a douchebag. So then they take the complete reversal where they have to assume the role of being inferior to others as like the standard.
Hmm. I wouldn't say that I have an inferiority complex, but I definitely had a phase where I was starting to view myself as intellectually superior than others, and that was not good. It led to a lot of problems
Well,
in my
don't you think that you
communication.
are smarter than a lot of other people, right? Like you do think that, right? That's a good thing to think, right?
Yes, I do think that, but unfortunately, saying something like that out loud alienates a lot of people.
Right, which this leads that. So I wanted to get into a narrative psychotherapy model, which is we become the story we tell ourselves.
Hmm.
So if you tell yourself the story that if you claim to have the high ground in an argument, then for some reason you see yourself as either mean or
Yeah.
toxic, and so then you try to virtue signal yourself out of having the high ground
Hmm.
because you don't want to be the leader, or you don't want to be the guy that's seen uh, as overtly trying to be superior.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of because it's almost as if you don't like challenges to your ideas.
Hmm. That I don't like challenges to my ideas. Hmm. Perhaps. I think I would disagree, but let me.
You're thinking?
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to think through it. I'm trying to actually
Can you think out loud
analyze
for
it.
me?
So you said that I don't like my ideas challenged, and I would disagree because I think that challenging and stress testing your ideas is a
My ideas.
fundamental
My
part.
say my.
My ideas is a fundamental part of the growth process. But I would agree partially in the aspect that, yes, it's not fun being challenged, and I want to get more comfortable doing that. But I wouldn't go as far to assert the claim that, like, broadly. But I'm trying to think of like a specific example, and I'm having a hard time giving it a good example and trying to think of my reaction towards a challenge. I
Well,
can't really
it
come up with
seems
anything.
so. The incorrect you language a lot of the times it seems as though so when I was working in Supermax prison,
Hmm.
this is where I learned the lesson of the incorrect you language, and they had told me it's always, always, always. They really beat it into my head that those who use incorrect you language are intentionally or unintentionally trying to manipulate others to not be individuated. And
Mm.
so when I would use incorrect you language with them sloppily, they would stop talking to me for the rest of the shift because it's very bad to use you language that's incorrect because it's signing up another person for that belief. Now I do you language with you when I'm asking you individuated, but not you universal. Because if we do you universal, it's trying to do the not taking sides. It's the
Mm.
me trying to not take ownership of my own ideas. If I say, uh, this is an example. If I say, uh, you got to feel great when you get good sleep. That's not correct. It's I feel good when I get good sleep. Now maybe you do also, but some people don't, and it's better to just speak for myself and not others. So if I do universal language, it's me speaking for others, which might be good sometimes because it's true for most people to feel good when they sleep, but it is agreeing to something for other people, which when working in prison, that's never good. So that's why it was beaten to my head to never incorrectly use you language. It also has you language is also blame language.
Do
If
you
I talk
think
to
because do you think because it was beaten to your head, you overly emphasize it? Because I've noticed that in a lot of conversations you bring this
yeah,
topic
because it,
up.
it that frame will always discover who's the manipulator based on their inability to individuate. That they want others to think like them. It's like this Tundra. You can make your arguments without me involved. And to do that, a person doesn't need to say you. They can just say I. Like, if I persuade you, Tundra, I shouldn't have to include you in my argument. If I'm talking about vegetarianism, I shouldn't
Hmm.
have to say, well, you feel bad when eating them because they are sentient beings that chickens should not be eaten because you feel bad about it. That is
Mm-hmm.
now using the other person as the qualifier for the logic.
Mm-hmm.
But without using you language, we can give our logic in a vacuum without having to include the other person as a validator. Because if you do you language to me and I'm saying no, then now we've lost what we're talking about. Now, sometimes you use you language, that's correct, but sometimes you don't. If I ask you, what do you think about this, and then you start using you language to me, you're giving language to me based on what I think and what validates me rather than what validates you,
Mm-hmm.
which is this lack of self validation that we've discussed for you. That I don't think that you understand how to self validate, that a lot of times Tundra wants other people to agree with him, that as soon as someone else doesn't agree with Tundra, Tundra starts to panic. This is my perspective.
Okay. I'd say that's probably a correct observation, but yeah, I'm not as aware of the structuring of my language as you are, because it seems like you're very aware of the structuring of other people's language when you converse with them.
Yeah.
I'm not as aware. So I still think that you overemphasize this, but since I haven't studied grammar in depth and I haven't looked into this myself, I can't give a concrete pushback.
Right.
I
I can give a little bit more explanation on my perspective. So, first off, every single sentence generally has a subject and a verb, a doer and what they're doing, a thing and what the thing is uh, being, right?
Mhm.
So if the subject is incorrect, then almost half of the whole entire sentence is not framed correctly. It's framed with the wrong character of the plot. So it's also a crutch where if I'm getting used to saying you universal and you feel this way, you feel that way, you feel this way, you universal, universally other people around do this and that, then it stops me from articulating a precise cluster of people I'm referring to. And it's almost like saying the word fuck too much. That word is like no big deal, but if I'm always saying it, then now I can't articulate more precisely. If I say, okay, gamers uh, sometimes play too many games, and then this other thing does too many games, and I start actually giving an articulate description of the subject of the sentence, I can describe better. But if I constantly say you, then I can't actually insert the subject of who I'm talking about. It also prevents me from doing a conversation more individuated, where it's me, Battlefield Philosophy, talking with Tundra, and it's more me, Battlefield Philosophy, talking with you, Universal, which is the people that aren't even here.
Let's see.
Do you understand the different arguments I made, or what's your perspective of what I brought up? Because I want to make sure that you kind of
So I
understand what I'm
was
saying.
trying to, because listening is something that I sometimes struggle with. I was trying to comprehend and like grasp everything you were saying, and I think I got the gist of it, but I don't think I understood it well enough to be able to summarize and repeat it back to you.
Yeah, I think I'm not doing a very good. This time of me explaining it, I don't think I'm doing very well. But uh, you language is blame language. It prevents me from articulating the precise subject of the sentence. It's a crutch where instead of me articulating, like if I just keep saying you as universal, I'm not putting the cluster of people I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like me saying, oh yeah, girls are like this and girls are like that and girls are like this and girls are like that. The implication is that I'm talking about clusters of women, right? That's like the implied, where I'm talking about there are women out there that do act like succubuses, that try to drain the soul and life forms out of men by nagging on them and this and that, right? But if I just keep saying, oh yeah, girls are like this and girls are like this and girls are like this as my crutch of framing my sentences, then I am becoming less articulate in whom I'm talking about. But if I say, okay, succubuses will move the goalposts when I talk to them, so they might make one argument, and after I prove them how they're wrong, they'll distract me and then pretend like they never made their first argument. And so if I just keep saying girls, that's the incorrect statement because
Yeah.
there are girls out there that are actually legit and really good.
It's the distinction of the group that you're talking about, or like you said, the
Correct. And so
subject.
if I just keep saying you language, I'm not distinguishing the correct you because there's a lot of you universal. If I'm doing you that's not Tundra, I'm saying you for the whole entire world, which is
Mhm.
so vast that it's almost not taking any sides, which again, lack of self validation leads to a person not taking any sides, which
Hmm.
leads to where they don't want that challenge by not taking a stand on the hill. But if you go onto the hill and you take a side and say, yes, Tundra thinks XYZ, Tundra thinks that everybody thinks this way, I have to start taking a side to defend it. But if I don't take a side, then it's easy to defend it.
Yeah, I know where this stems from, because like going back to where you're talking about the superiority and inferiority, and when you generalize and don't take sides, you alienate less people. When I was doing when I went through a phase where all I listened to was like debate, arguments, and the more and more I watched, the more I realized that people just talk out of their ass. They don't they don't do fact finding. They don't make logical conclusions from the facts that they gather. They cherry pick. And this is like in more professional settings of like, well, it's still YouTube debate, but this is like higher stakes than just your normal conversation. And if people at this level, and even in like academia, like I've seen like professors argue against each other. It's like these people are falling into like they're using a bunch of logical fallacies. It's quite obvious that they're overestimating their bounds of knowledge. And it's like if even people at this level of prestige or caliber are falling into these elementary mistakes, when I started talking to normal people about their view of the world, I noticed that people don't know shit. They don't have their worldview grounded very well, including myself. I know that I have a lot of holes in my knowledge, but I think I have a good awareness of the bounds of my knowledge. This goes back to when I was getting into finance. This is something that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger talk a lot about. Is your circle of competence, and it's mostly in the context of investing, but I generalize the term to like all areas of life. Is know what you know, like know the bounds of your knowledge, and know when you're outside of the bounds of your knowledge. And I always try to operate within the bounds of my knowledge, have an appropriate level of conviction. And when I was aware of my own bounds and aware of what conviction to have and aware of how informed I am on a topic, I started realizing other people don't do this. Other people are incredibly uninformed. Other people make assumptions and overgeneralizations. They're just, and then when I realized that, when I would talk to people, I would just be disappointed because it's like people are so convinced of their worldview. They haven't done any stress testing. They
Right.
are so convinced of their
And that's
ideas.
when it comes down to whether or not their ideas are tenable. Tenable meaning their ideas have been actually challenged. And so that's when I talk to people and I ask them where do they get their knowledge from? Do they listen to books? Who do they talk to that challenges their ideas? And if they don't have any challenges to their ideas, then it's the type of person that's only on top when they dig down. They don't really build up. So I think I also wanted to bring up the whole idea of the CI therapy because you already agree that you Tundra should stop saying like, correct?
Yes. I want.
I've already
Yeah.
sold you on that, but I haven't
Yes.
yet sold you on the you language being
Well,
incorrect.
you've sold me, but from my perspective, I still think you put an overemphasis on it. And then I actually had a question for you. How do you disentangle when people are using it colloquially or just out of habit versus sensing actual manipulation? What's your thought process on
Yeah, my thought
disentangling this by
process
that?
on that is the intent doesn't matter. Uh,
Mm,
that a lot of times they'll use negligence or unawareness as an escape. And so there are people that are malicious that when I call them out, they will feign, yeah, I just use this all the time. This is that's how everybody talks.
mm,
And so they try to hide in the group. Right? It's the zebra tactics where when I catch them doing something, they try to act like everybody else does this, and so they can get away with it too. And so then they stop doing the you individuated, and they don't talk to me like I'm an individual. And so I have to remind them to talk to me like I'm an individual and not like I have the ideas that the other people they've encountered have. And so
mm.
just how the word like is a crutch, overuse of the word fuck is a crutch because it replaces other adjectives, other descriptors, and you language replaces is the crutch for the subject. So if I use too many yous and too many fuck language and too many like language and you know language, then it's this whole entire bottle of filler that just shows how much I don't control my speech. That me finding words of self accountability and saying I and me more often is a skill that others fail because they'll have to say what they think with a frame of others. But I shouldn't have to use others as a frame for what I think myself. And so, as a crutch, me using the you language too much, it makes me not aware of how to talk without saying you as the subject of most of my language. And if I say, oh, hey, Tundra, how do you feel when you drink diet soda? And then Tundra says, well, you, and then has like a whole long thing about what Tundra thinks. It's like, just own it. So a lot of the you language is the lack of emotional ownership. Like, do you believe
Hmm.
that you own your emotions?
Hmm. I believe I own my emotions. Could you be more specific?
The emotions that you feel, do you think that you are in control or that you are in charge of your emotions?
Not yet.
Not.
Or there's varying degrees, perhaps?
Are you responsible to help that?
Yes, you are responsible or I am responsible for myself.
Right. Just
So,
just like I'm responsible for mine. And a lot of times manipulators will say, "Oh, you're making me mad," or you're making me
yeah,
so unhappy,"
it's
right?
like you're causing me to feel this way. The
Right.
blame is on you instead of I'm the
Which
one
is
who,
the right.
yeah,
Instead of saying I'm getting mad because of what you're telling me.
yeah,
That is a better frame. It's still not that good because it just means that I lack the control, but people don't want to say that they lack control. People would rather say something that other people are doing to them and make themselves be the victim.
yeah. And when you put it in the context of like,
The blame
you are
language.
making me feel this way, like
Yeah.
shifting the blame, that I definitely can resonate with, and I have experience seeing, not seen it like in real life, but like I've seen like on television. I think it would map onto reality quite well that like unsophisticated communicators would kind of fall for that abuse trap of people shifting the blame, and then they don't realize that they're not owning their emotions, that they're blame shifting onto you. And if you're an overly empathetic person, or you're one of those people who like kind of easily crumbles in that way, you would be like, oh, is it my fault that I'm making them feel this way? No, they're the ones reacting to what I'm doing. That's their fault. But if you don't have that thought process, I think people can easily fall into that trap.
Right. And did you notice how some of the times you said you language and sometimes you would actually use a precise explanation of who you're talking about? So sometimes you would say unsophisticated thinkers, blah, 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 blah. And then other times your subject was you with a extra addition to it.
I'm trying to be more aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm still not perfect, but
And
I'm
I
catching myself. I'm
and
catching
I might
myself
do
a
it
little
too.
bit.
So if I ever do it, I want you to make sure that you know that you can call me out for it because the
Sure.
individuation thing is a huge problem in our society. That lack of individuation leads to people not taking ownership over their own emotions or their own life. And so I wanted to do one more thing and then go into talking more deeply about your vegetarianism because I did want to hit that before we finish.
Okay. Alrighty.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about is consciousness levels. This comes from the
Mm-hmm.
book Virus of the Mind, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So level one of consciousness is where we are a slave imposed by others. So if I'm having to go to work, 9 to 5 job, get off of work, then having to pay bills, having to do all this stuff, I don't really have a life. I'm kind of a slave to other people. That's level one. Level one is basically slavery to what other people tell me to do, I have to do. If we live underneath a totalitarian state where we have to do what other people tell us to do, that's level one. Level two is we're no longer level one, but we're now self imposing slavery consciously. Where we're
Mm-hmm.
now not allowing ourselves to express our consciousness. We're not allowing ourselves because we're used to that past that we don't want to self express because other people might give us shame or they're controlling us because they're going to impose that onto us. So instead of them imposing it onto us, we do it to ourselves because we fear them doing it to us, even though they're not doing it to us anymore. So this happens with a lot of people that have complex post-traumatic stress disorder where maybe they lived underneath a childhood where their mom would say, do it because I said so, or their dad would say, do it because I said so. So they're underneath level one. Then when they
Mm-hmm.
grow up, they're no longer underneath their parents' household, but they still have that like inability to become individuated as their own individual. And then level three is where we are being able to self-express ourselves, and the highest level three is we get paid to do what we want. Because slavery is still related to I have to work to get paid, but I don't like to do what I would do for work. So as soon
Mm-hmm.
as we actually can do what we want to do for work, then we have to be able to express ourselves how we want. So it's like if no one's holding you back from doing YouTube, now you're now your own slave master. If you understand the figurative
Yeah.
speech.
No. Yeah. 100%. I understand. I'm following.
So getting back to our because I want to make sure we circle back to our whole thing about how you don't really want to like you have apprehension right about posting on YouTube, and so it's not like there's anyone that's telling you, hey, Tundra, you better not post this or else we'll fire you, right?
Yes.
Um,
Of course.
Now it's more of just you're self-imposing on yourself because you're fearing that if you were to post something that you'd feel shame or that you'd feel mediocre. And
Yeah.
so your slavery is you're a slave to your fear.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have to break those chains in my perspective. What do you think about that?
I think that's, yeah, very accurate analysis of the situation. I would agree.
which is giving yourself permission to fail.
Hey, I just need to do it. I just need to go out there,
So,
fail, and pick myself back up.
yeah.
I know I can do it. I'm determined. I'm so hungry for the outcomes.
So,
And yeah,
in IFS psychotherapy model, it discusses the internal family systems where every single person has multiple personalities, and instead of saying personalities, we say parts. So inside Tundra, there's multiple parts to Tundra. There's one part of him that's like, I'm gonna big dick it out there. I'm gonna post all these videos. Another part of Tundra is like, no, don't do that. People are gonna say mean things. And there's another part of Tundra that's like, I want to go play video games or whatever. And then another part of Tundra is like, so there's all these different parts of Tundra. And when these parts of Tundra are in confliction with each other, the part that wins is the one that's the most comfortable, the one that's in the status quo, the one that's the most lazy. So the reason why the part of Tundra that's winning is the one that doesn't post is because that's the comfortable part.
yeah, yeah,
So it's almost like you have to seek that uncomfortableness. It's almost like instead of trying to aim to have all these wins and to go viral and be this Chad, it's to aim to get experience failing so that way you can stop failing from learning. Like if you learn, then you won't have to fail anymore. But it's like you're trying to avoid failing, but those failures are experiences that help you level up. So
yeah,
you have to get these mediocre experiences. You have to get these failing experiences to level up as a person. That's my perspective, that to level up we have to gain those experiences. And so I had to convince myself that it's better to be seen as, oh, that's that annoying guy that posts random an hour and a half videos. Oh, that's that annoying guy. Like, I have to be comfortable with other people thinking that.
yes. Because you can't please everyone, and I know that.
Yeah.
But I fell into the nice guy people pleaser trap for a while, and now I've been trying to dig myself out of it. And the main obstacles are my confidence and conviction, and being okay with the fact that you can't please everyone. It's just impossible. And I have to be okay with that. And those are the main obstacles right
Let me
now.
try to do another angle where, let's say there's someone out there who is not as smart as you, not as good looking as you, a lot less money than you, a lot less place of living, like all these things. They have a worse car than you. Like everything in their life is lesser than you. Like they're inferior than you in almost every
Okay.
single dimension of measurement, right?
All right.
But they're winning because they're posting videos online.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make you mad that someone out there is doing better than you just because they're showing up?
I guess it would make me mad, but you can only blame yourself at that point because it's like I didn't
Say
take the
I can only
time.
blame myself at that point.
I can only blame myself at that point because I didn't do the work.
Yeah.
So, sure, if I'm in this hypothetical have better qualities than this other person, but they did the work,
Yeah.
then kudos to them. They
And
get the
let's say they
rewards.
had even less confidence than you, but they still posted stuff. Because the thing is, confidence really, it, it's usually confidence might be a byproduct of having done something.
Yes,
So
Hormozy
maybe you're
talks
not going to
about
get
this.
confidence before you post it. You're going to post it and then get confidence.
Do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, he talks about this confidence thing where he says that to build confidence, you just have to, it's repetition and proving to yourself that you can do something. Because if you've done something 100 times and you've proven to yourself that you've done it, well, then
Well,
the
and
confidence is a byproduct.
right, and another reason why I try to have you reshape your U to I language is so you own it more. Because if you believe
Yeah,
it, you should be able to say
yeah,
I. Because you
yes, you're
don't have to
right.
convince me.
To
It's almost
convince
like you're trying to
myself.
convince me because you haven't convinced yourself.
Yeah,
So if you convince yourself, just say I and own it. Be like, I don't need confidence. I just need to post it. I don't need to believe in myself. I just need to do it anyway.
Hmm.
Because it doesn't really matter what you feel. What matters is the action you do. Because everybody has excuses. Everybody can think of any excuse to get themselves out of it. Now, what I like to do is I try to reverse it. Try to give yourself an excuse to do it. Like, oh, I guess I have nothing better to do today. I guess I'll post it today. I guess, I mean, I haven't really posted anything for a whole week. I might as well post it. So it's like try to find excuses to do positive things, not just not to get out of things.
Hmm.
So if you can try to change your excuses to not just be not to post it, but if you can do excuses to do things, then your excuses can actually be beneficial.
Interesting. Hmm.
Where if
Yeah.
we only excuse ourselves out of doing things, we got to flip that to do excuses to do healthy things. Like, oh, today I guess I'm just going to drink water instead of soda. Oh, today, it's giving yourself permission. Like, you don't need my permission. You don't need anyone else's permission. You just need to give yourself permission, which is that self validation thing.
Yeah. That's what I've been trying to cultivate, self-validation and confidence. But
So now I want to get into the vegetarianism, and then we'll
sure.
call it a wrap.
All right, cool.
All right. So vegetarianism. How did that start?
So it started because I've been very fascinated by consciousness for a long time. And I thought to myself, because there's something called philosophical zombies, is like a thought experiment in philosophy. And a philosophical zombie is as if like a human exists, but they have no consciousness. There's no perceiver. Because the whole thing about consciousness is in the first place is there's a subjective experience. There's the perception. You can see the color red, like the qualia of red, taste. Like there is something, there's someone perceiving the world. We're not zombies. We're not just like robots that are like input output. There's something behind the robot having the subjective experience.
So let me
So
make
I
it more.
thought,
Let me make it more particular. So why should
mhm.
you not eat chickens?
So I was getting to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The reason why the reason why I care about people, because I was trying to like build this. So
yeah,
I think like consciousness is like the foundation.
yeah.
Why do I care about people? Why don't I just like murder other people and take their money? Well, it kind of goes back to like the golden rule, treat others how they treat you, or like no, not that, but the reason why I care about other people, or why we even should care about other people, is because there is someone perceiving the experience. If everyone around me was a robot and I was the only consciousness to exist in the world, why would I have morals? Would I not just like become egotistical and just take what I want? Well, what's preventing me from doing that? Well, I do care about others, but why? I care about others because I have suffered. And the reason why I suffer is because I have a conscious experience. Other people have a conscious experience, and I wouldn't want them to suffer, so that's why I care about other people. If people were just robots and I was the only human in existence with consciousness, then I could just do whatever the heck I want. Why not? So then I started thinking to myself like, well, is consciousness like a binary or is there a gradient? And I was thinking, to what degree do I stop caring about the subjective nature of the perceiver? And then I was thinking in the context of animals. And I was like, it seems like there's a logical inconsistency here. If I care about humans because I care about the subjective perceiver, and if animals also have consciousness, they also have a subjective perception. Is it a meaningful enough distinction between that of a human and an animal that I can no longer care? Because when I listen to a lot of veganism debates, they ask people like, "Oh, what quality do animals lack that humans have that allows us to eat an animal. And a lot of people are speciesist. A lot of people are just like, well, they're just dumb animals and I'm a human, so I can eat them. And if that's your stance and you only have allegiance to humans, then that's logically consistent. But if my stance is from the foundation of consciousness, which is what I care about, then it would be logically inconsistent, in my view, to not extend some care for animals. And then the question is, well, how much care? And I've been wrestling with that. So I went vegetarian because I think that animals have consciousness. And I think it is a shame to inflict suffering on a something that has a subjective perspective. I wouldn't do it to a human, and so I don't think I should do it to an animal. And that is kind of where I'm at on
Yeah,
why I'm
yeah, yeah. So
vegetarian.
I have some questions I can go over to try to explore your worldview.
Yeah, let's poke some holes.
Yeah, yeah,
Alrighty.
yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
what about bugs? Are bugs conscious?
Oh, I've been struggling with that one actually.
Because
Because
chickens eat bugs.
yeah, so
So does
this
that make
is
chickens immoral?
yeah, so it can get the further out you take this logic, when you try to take this like consistent from the way I've approached it, if you try to extend this even further, like you have, which is an obvious extension, you run into some interesting problems.
That's what you run into, right?
Yes, or I run into some interesting problems
Yes,
based
you are.
upon this worldview. Yeah, this is a problem. I don't actually know if insects have consciousness because that's we can't even prove that
So
other
this gets to the
humans
next
have
question of
consciousness.
how much consciousness is to the point where you say eating them is immoral.
So that kind of goes back to like a binary versus gradient and where the line is drawn. And hmm hmm
Well, which question do you want to answer more? Do you want to go more to the chicken thing, where have like a specific example, or do you want to go more into like the abstract of talking about consciousness?
I prefer the abstract talking about consciousness, but I'm fine talking about either because I know that this worldview isn't fully fleshed out and it does run into problems, but I still have this fundamental value of consciousness that I care about. So I feel like that's an axiom that will be unchanging, but how I apply it might certainly change depending on whatever information I'm presented.
All right, it's because if yeah, I'm so asking like what type of thoughts does an animal or entity have to have for you to go, okay, I can't eat that. Wait, hold on, a tomato grows this way because it's growing away from heat because it's sentient to try to survive itself. It's trying to protect itself because life is where they can procreate, they can make more children of themselves, and that they have survival. They take the survival option. That if it doesn't have consciousness, it would grow right into where a fire is at, or it'd grow into something that would hurt it.
So the distinction here is between something that has life and something that has a subjective consciousness or like the subjective perspective. And for things that are alive but don't have consciousness, I don't have any issue with. I eat plants. I have a nice salad. I don't see any issue with that. If the science comes out and it turns out plants do have consciousness, then gosh, then I
What are you
guess
gonna
I'm gonna
eat
have to.
then?
I don't know. So that's also the thing I've struggled with because then there's other problems you run into because my worldview has a bunch of problems. And then there's other problems you run into of like nutrition and longevity of life. And like, is it okay for
I think you have.
a
I think you have a virtue where you're trying to be overly positive and overly good and overly not bad.
mm-hmm,
That you get to the point of confusion where
yeah.
there's a certain point when you do have to be an omnivore, or it's like there's a point when consumption is required for life.
Yeah, because you run into problems like with carnivore animals. You run into problems of like how you kind of mentioned earlier, like the chicken eating the insect, but
Yeah.
which I don't actually know if insects have consciousness, but let's say like a wolf eating a chicken, right? Well, now am I given the moral duty to kill all carnivores? But then it's kind of like fucked up because then you're like, well, this animal is born this way,
Right, which gets
and if they're yeah,
into the
but
question of like, let's say there's this lion, and this
hmm
lion kills and eats a human.
hmm
Does that give your worldview the ability to now like kill and eat that lion?
yeah. So I believe in self-defense, and I still have more of an allegiance to humans over any other creature. And I really do need to take the time to ground all this out. But
There's gonna be
hmm,
I'm gonna bring up the worm experiment. They did an experiment on worms where
yeah,
they they put these worms into a maze, and after time, the worms didn't really know how to go through the maze, but they put them through the maze a couple of times. And I could get some of this wrong, but I'm trying to just speed through it.
yeah,
So the worms went through the maze, and they could figure out how to get through it, and eventually got better and better. And then they killed these worms, chopped them up, and fed them to other worms because worms will eat anything, right?
hmm
So the other worms that ate the first worms, the ones that had gone through the puzzle, those worms that ate those other worms were then put through the puzzle, and the worms that ate the other ones that had gone through the puzzle could go through the puzzle much faster. So it
hmm
made us realize that we gain certain levels of not just nutrients, but possibly intelligence based on what we eat. That's what that experiment seemed to stipulate. That's what it seemed to
hmm
indicate, which is a crazy thing to realize. I mean, that's one reason why people like to eat more like bison and elk and these animals that are a little bit more like gamey uh, and sturdy, because we are what we eat, and so we should eat humans because we're human. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking about that one. Um,
yeah.
so
So I've tried to stress test my own view with this hypothetical I constructed, where you try to like balance life versus the consumption, or
you're trying to balance life and
or
consumption.
I'm trying to balance it. I do think, although my worldview's radical, I think other people should at least consider this consciousness perspective. But besides that, a hypothetical I constructed to stress test my view was like, let's say that a vegetarian diet does actually kill me sooner. That humans are omnivores, we need to eat meat. It's just something about the our genetics and the nutrients that comes with meat that by withholding it from my diet, I will die sooner. Let's say I would live to 99 years, and by eating meat, it would only extend my lifespan by 1 year to 100. And then let's say, so then I would be like, well, obviously I can't eat meat. It's just 1 year. It's not fair to put to kill that life form so that I can consume it to live 1 year longer. And then I was thinking like, well, what if I'm only gonna live to the age of 5? But then like eating even like one chicken nugget would extend my lifespan to 100. And then I was like, is that is there a
I
balance here, or
so
is it just
do you think that sentient animals have morality?
no? I think I actually only think humans are capable of exercising
Because
morality.
it seems like chickens or lions, I don't think they really have any qualms with consuming what's in their standard diet. Like chickens
Yeah.
eat bugs and they don't even think a second for it, I don't think. So it seems like the morality of these animals that I eat, like I just ate some steak, I don't think the the cow that I ate, the part of the cow I didn't eat the whole cow, but the part of the cow that I ate, I don't think that it has any morality system that if they could eat a human, they would. That
See, but
if a chicken could eat a human, it would, and it would even like roosters even attack humans.
to me that seems almost like a whataboutism. That's like, oh well, because they don't have a moral system, then that gives us the authority to consume them. And I don't think that's the case. I think that it's kind of like a great power comes great responsibility. With greater intellect comes greater
Well, then that
responsibility.
just proves that you and chickens don't have the same consciousness level.
Sure, but I in my
And so I'm
worldview,
trying
so
to
that's
understand where is that line you draw from? Okay, you don't think that a tomato is conscious enough for you to care, but then
well, I
maybe
don't think a tomato has consciousness at all.
I think there's a little bit of it being conscious that if it's near a fire, it's going to try to. They've detected that it knows that it's near danger, and by the signals it sends out.
I would say that now I'm not informed on tomatoes, so my level of conviction on this statement is gonna not be 100%. But that's the distinction earlier is the distinction between something that's has life and something that actually has a conscious experience. I don't care if I knew that someone was a philosophical zombie. If I knew another human being, so like let's say
Well, I can make it better than you.
we're
I can make the argument better than you. So, if we
Mhm.
are able to eat that has no conscious and can't think, then should we be able to eat humans who have 10 out of 10 brain damage, like complete vegetable humans?
if there's no consciousness,
Right.
I
There's no
don't
brain waves
see
going on, and they're still alive.
I don't
And
have any qualms with eating a human if they have no consciousness. If
which
like if
is
you put a human in front of me and you were like, this person has no consciousness, they are a robot, they're an NPC. Fuck it, why not kill them and eat them? I don't see the problem with it. I mean, you might think it's gross because it's another human and you're consuming human flesh, but the issue for me is the consciousness, not whether it's gross or not. And I also don't have a qualm with eating animals if like let's say they die of like natural causes and you're like you just happen to stumble across the body relatively quick after it died and it's got like no infestation or anything like that, the animal died, you're not the one who killed it. I don't see any qualms with eating it. It's not the consumption that bothers me, it's how it's acquired.
right. I mean, I'm not when I eat animals, I'm not going. Yes, make sure that we torture the animals a ton before I eat them. That's
Mhm.
not my position. My position is usually all right. Chickens, you just chop off the head, or and then it's over.
So here's the thing that I considered is the consciousness gap between us and chickens, if that same gap appeared in an alien civilization and an alien civilization with that same gap and they're that magnitude higher of consciousness from us, then they could extend the exact same argument we extend to chickens to us, and they could use the same justification to kill and eat us. They'd be like, oh, these dumb humans, their consciousness level is so low that I can just slaughter them and eat them because their consciousness level's not, it's so inferior to mine. But we still have the subjective perspective, we still experience suffering.
But
And so,
I think that you don't like that life is not fair. I think you don't like being unfair.
yeah,
You don't like that life is unfair.
I don't think that the thing is
Right?
I don't think that yes, but I don't think that gives you the moral authority to then perpetuate unfairness. But then that's the problem I run into when I do my like infinite perspective analysis of other humans, where I'm like trying to treat everyone equally.
Have you ever read The Social Contract?
Not.
That's a really good one. That's one that it explores the philosophy behind civilization building and how society has to have implied agreements and that it's not related to religion. It's related to social exchange theories and
Hmm.
explains when we have the right to steal or to kill. And I think you would like it. I'll send it to you. But the other morality system I use is the categorical imperative, where
Oh, was that Kant?
yeah, where
Oh
if
yeah,
every,
you've talked about this. You've
yeah,
talked
yeah,
about
where if everybody did it, would the world be a better place? Where if everybody ate chickens, would the world be a better place? Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be worse. I mean, it wouldn't be terrible. I would like to live in a world where everybody ate chickens if they could. I mean, if they have some sort of special condition where they can't eat it, then don't. But
See, then the problem with this is you can do like I think it's called reductio ad absurdum, where when you take that ideology, you can take it to its absolute extreme to show that you can have absurd outcomes. Like, let's say there's a hypothetical where the world could be a better place if we enslaved two guys. Like, these two guys are like the best workers ever. They're so productive. They can control all of agriculture and energy production, and they can make the whole world's infrastructure go round. All we have to do is enslave these two people, and then the rest of humanity would be able to do the kumbaya in utopia.
no, I don't
But
think I don't think that would make the world a better place because it would lead to codependency or dependency on those people. I think it would make people
so
weaker.
there's other overriding principles you have there. It's not purely utilitarian.
Oh no, it is utilitarian. It means that if we are depending on two people to be our slave pigs, then us ourselves become weaker because we're deferring all of accountability and all of our energy to those people.
So, but if I constructed the hypothetical in such a way that that wasn't an issue,
I
and
mean,
I
you could
could tell
always
you
just
what,
define the win. Do you know what defining the win is, right?
oh, constructing the hypothetical in
It's
such a
like
way that,
saying, "Hey, yo, the universe is God. Therefore, since the universe exists, therefore God exists." That's defining the win by making the hypothetical so much that
mm,
basically
you get
it's
the
like when a
outcome you
girl
want.
says, "If I was a worm, would you still love me?" It's a makes the hypothetical such that it's never it's we
Yeah.
have to change our whole morality system because if aliens were to come visit us, then they would go, "Well, we eat chickens, so they can eat us." And I think we can still prove
Yeah.
that we're way above the chicken level of consciousness.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Like
I mean, so any
chickens,
moral
chickens eat
system,
chickens could see their homie get killed and then start eating the remains of his friend
yeah.
and not even have any hesitation about it. They eat their own eggs, and we have to stop them from eating their own eggs. Like they're fucking stupid bird brains, man. So
Yeah,
the whole
I
question is, you want them to have no intelligence. Like you want to have these animals that are have no encephalum. Is that what it's called? No brain mass,
I'm
right?
not familiar with this, but you so yes, my moral system, it has a lot of bugs that I have to work out. But I think that no moral system is completely like, I'm not sure if self-contained would be the word, but
Yeah,
they all
encephalon
run into
encephalon
problems.
means the brain of a vertebrae. Like basically, you don't want to eat things that have a brain.
It's not the brain I care about, it's only
The
consciousness.
thoughts. But yeah, so what I'm saying is like, how much thoughts do they have to have for? And you said basically any. Like as long as if a human is a vegetable, then you have no problems with eating them. But I think that the main problem that one of the problems that you have is the suffering dynamic that you don't want them to
Yeah.
suffer.
Yes.
That even if the human is some sort of let's say this human is a vegetable. They have 10 out of 10 brain damage. They were in some gnarly ass car accident. They're now roadkill, but we're keeping them alive on machines.
Hmm.
And then we're like, okay, go ahead, Tundra, go ahead and eat them because according to your morality, you can. And then let's say you like start eating him, and then it's like the human that's a vegetable starts like wincing in pain. Is that going to then be a clue to you to stop?
So there's a lot of issues with my worldview, and one of them is
This?
the proof of, can you, because we can't even prove that it's the hard problem of consciousness in philosophy. We can't even prove other people's consciousness exist. It's like
We can prove
Kagi,
it. We can
by
prove it based on
proxy.
well, we can give hoops for them to jump through intellectually. That if they can intellectually perform this intellectual task, then they have to have some level of intelligence to perform
So
that. I mean,
I would.
with crows, we know that they're intelligent because we give them puzzles. They do those puzzles, and we go, okay, crows have brains that are smart enough to solve these puzzles, and they have some level of thinking.
So I would agree that it's. I'm not gonna deny that we don't need to get like in La La Land.
And I
It's
mean,
pretty
there's also the
self-evident
Turing
that
test. I mean, to say that we cannot prove consciousness just shows lack of ability to test people.
well, no, it's so obviously it's self-evident that there's something going on, but there's it's a I'd have to re-look back into the hard problem of consciousness and philosophy. It's been a minute, but I would almost with a high level of conviction, we cannot prove the actual like tangible nature of like this thing has consciousness. We can give it proxy tests that we associate with consciousness,
Right, which
but
is
we
what's the
still don't
difference?
have.
No, so it's like the Turing test where if an AI can
Mhm.
pretend to be a human and we
Sufficiently enough to
cannot
fool another
detect the
human.
difference between the AI, then the difference is such that it is so similar that we can't see the difference. So it's very the same consciousness level.
No, it's not the same consciousness level.
So
You can't distinguish the difference, but there's no subjective perceiver. There's nothing behind there's nothing experiencing the qualia. It's just a robot input output.
so maybe we're going off the tangent again. So let's get back to.
Hmm.
So you're trying to say that there's no way for us to prove that humans have consciousness?
So that's the hard problem of
Because
consciousness
I already
in
said we can
science and
prove that, and you
philosophy.
said we can't because we're only using proxy. But how is it proxy and not directly a test? Because it seems to me like a direct test.
I haven't constructed an argument for this before because I haven't gotten pushback on this in this way.
Well, yeah. So
So
you're
let me
telling
think
well,
for a second.
yeah. Well, let me try to like talk while you're thinking a little bit. So what you're telling me is that consciousness is difficult because we can't really test it or measure it. And I say, well, we have these tests to show that consciousness is required to complete this test. And then you say, well, that's just by proxy. But I'm thinking, even by proxy, that's still a test that clearly indicates it, right? It's almost like how
Yeah,
missiles.
I would agree.
It's like with missiles. We know where
Hmm.
missiles are by based on where they're not. So we can do tests that run where things are not to figure out what they are. So even though we're doing tests by proxy, we're still doing tests that measure and give us output that indicate yes, this person is a vegetable or this person isn't a vegetable based on their ability to perform these conscious tests.
Fair enough. Like, so I'm not gonna go off into La La Land and be like, oh, actually, we can't.
Because I didn't know whether or not you're going to go into
100%.
solipsism of like we're all just
I did go down the solipsist route for a little
brain
bit.
in a vat, and how do you know that I'm not you and
Yeah.
you're not me, and that everybody's the same human consciousness? For people that go down that route, I'm just like, yeah, let me just have sex with their girl then if we're all the same entity, and then all of a sudden they don't want to hold that belief anymore. All of a
Yeah.
sudden,
Uh, so yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So there are some things because you can like source bro people into oblivion, and at some point you have to agree. In my view, I think you have to agree some things are just self-evident and we don't have to like infinitely dig down to the bare fundamentals to such a
do
degree
you
to
think that you're
build it all back
superior
up.
to some humans?
By what metric?
Any
Sure.
metric that okay,
There are metrics where I'm superior, there's metrics where I'm
right,
inferior.
correct.
Okay. What was that it? or is there something
Well,
else?
yeah, I'm just trying to understand because it seems to me, like you said, you don't like life being unfair, and
Yeah,
then
so I have to accept life is unfair, and that's where I was like mind fucked. Was no matter what I do, sometimes I'm gonna do an immoral action, whether my intent is there or not. No matter what, you can never act in full accordance with 100% morality. It's just not possible. It's not practical. You would be stuck in like you'd be stuck in your head doing like calculus of your actions to try to like figure out like, oh, blah blah blah, if I do this, then this agent is going to experience an immoral act. So that
So I
was
want
a
to get back to the chicken thing because I remember the last time I brought it up, you said, "Well, that's just a whataboutism," and then you brought up the alien example, and I'm like, "That's even worse because the aliens are not like really a real thing we encounter every day." But I have
well,
chickens within a mile radius of me currently, so
what I was attempting to do was try to extend the perceived consciousness difference from humans and chickens to a hypothetical between like another
yeah, yeah, yeah.
life form and us to try to prove the underlying point I was trying to prove is like, well, just because there's a gap in consciousness or perceived gap doesn't give us the doesn't necessarily give us the
But
authority to
it,
then deny that agent of its life.
if there's a so you like to you're okay with eating plants because you're not convinced that they have any level of thinking, that they just respond to stimuli without any reflection.
Sure. I'm not
because
sure if
uh,
thinking and consciousness is a distinction. I'm not sure
because
if the life form.
consciousness relates to self-reflection and asking questions. The more questions we ask, the more conscious we become.
Mhm.
And so if we consider bugs, I don't even really think they ask questions. I think they just fly around or crawl around. They don't write books. They don't think about things really. They have no way to indicate that they have any moral system. And then chickens eat them. So I wonder if you're down to eat bugs. Are you down to eat bugs? Like, is there a level of bug that's like so brain dead dumb that you're like, okay, it's
Um,
below the threshold of consciousness that you're down to eat this bug?
so I would actually have to even look if bugs have consciousness. That's certainly something I need to know for my worldview. If it would just so obviously there's a grossness factor here, where if something's gross, I'm not going to eat it. But theoretically, if I didn't care about that, if it doesn't have consciousness, it's on the table to be eaten. That's my
I
view.
mean, praying mantis, they're really small, but if they're our size, we would have to exterminate them.
Yeah, and then you kind of get into self-defense arguments that's tricky, and so I'll fully admit that my worldview is it needs refinement and it needs to be more well thought out. But
Well, when it comes to
with
the intellectual imperative of making sure that you, Tundra, become superior to your parents and to guarantee that your offspring will become superior to you, if you
mm,
come to find out that having a diet that includes meat like chicken and elk or one type of other meat, whatever,
mm,
that makes you have more nutrients, making you more intelligent, making you smarter, making you better, then according to your duty to become more intellectual, then it's like your duty to start eating these nutrients that help you and your offspring become superior.
I feel like there's an overriding principle of like so like you could take that you could use the utilitarian argument like, oh well, if I ate one chicken, my brain power would increase, and then I'd be able to like solve a problem that would help out 100 humans. So for the trade of like one chicken, I could
So,
help out.
how many chickens is equal to a human life? Let's get to
I
it.
don't know. I don't. I would say humans are far superior to
Like, how many
chickens,
chickens do I
obviously.
have to, it's almost like back in the time when people would sell humans. It's like nowadays we still sell chickens, but like, how many chickens could I trade for a human, according to your worldview? if if their
Uh,
sentience is still like on the table.
this reminds me
If
of the
if I had if I
utilitarian.
had 100 chickens I was going to kill, or I could kill a human that
So
is
at the end of the day, my allegiance is much more towards humans.
if I told you I will kill 1,000 chickens or I will kill the person you
Oh,
saw in the grocery store today.
this is a hard stress test.
Yes.
I'm gonna go into it with good faith,
How
and I'm
many
gonna run
chickens is a
into
human
some
worth
holes here.
in your worldview?
I'm gonna run into some holes here. You'll be able to poke me with, but I'll run into it head first. All right, 1,000 chickens for a human? I would favor the
And
human.
how'd you
Yeah,
get come
yeah.
up with that number?
I don't know. I just care about humans more, but the ah um
1,000 chickens. So one human is worth a thousandth of a chicken.
uh, um
And then
yeah.
how many cockroaches is equal to a human?
Fuck cockroach. You know, morality has an aesthetic to it as well. Save the bees, fuck the cockroaches. No, I'm joking, but
Mosquitoes.
um,
How many are you down to eat mosquitoes? If they
so
were
you don't need to keep asking me if I'm down to eat because it just goes back to my earlier distinction of obviously grossness is a factor, but all
Oh,
I care
okay.
about
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
consciousness.
yeah.
So that distinction has been covered. But yeah, so the world's not fair. Shit's gonna happen. You can never be 100% moral, and I have to accept that. And I try to be moral, but you run into these problems. This is certainly a problem in my worldview. And
Well,
then
yeah.
it's
Well,
like, if I have this worldview, then is it now my duty to start killing carnivores to save the life of non-carnivores?
or to
And then
save the
it's
life
like,
of anything that it would might eat, right? Like
yeah,
which was the
yeah,
previous argument I had that if chickens were bigger, they would eat humans. If chickens were fucking huge, they would like. Cause roosters
that,
already attack. Have you ever stared into the eyes of a rooster?
no, I have not.
The rooster will want to take you on and try to kill you, but obviously it's a fucking rooster, so all you
So
have to do is give it one nice kick, and then all of a sudden it changes its
I,
mind.
I still believe in the overriding self-defense. So there's a hierarchy of axioms here, and some override others. And then there's context, and oh, I have
So
to
the
map
reason why
this
I
all
brought up
out.
the cockroach thing or like the bug thing is because if chickens in your worldview are equal more than bugs, if a chicken's eating more than that threshold, then now this chicken needs to be
Yeah,
put out because
yeah,
it's now a socio a psychopath that's killing
yeah.
sentient bugs, right? So if let's say 10 worms is equal to one chicken, and chickens are eating 20 worms every single day, well, guess what? We got to start killing some of these chickens because these chickens are fucking monsters.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna do a whataboutism here.
Sure.
Total whataboutism. Yes, my worldview does fall into these pitfalls. I would say that the majority of worldviews fall into other pitfalls as well that are unaccounted for. That doesn't mean that because other people do something that I can do something. So I will fully. This is a whataboutism. I'm just trying to strive to do the best I can morally,
Well, it's
and
not
I have
necessarily
to.
a whataboutism.
Mhm.
A whataboutism is more related to a like a tu quoque fallacy. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to bring up a different argument entirely. I'm not bringing up a different entirely. I am
Yeah,
bringing up a situation for you to contend with through your
yeah,
worldview. So it's not like
yeah.
I'm bringing up something that's completely changing the topic. I'm bringing up something
Mhm.
that helps us apply the topic to a direct example.
Yeah, so the thing is I hate when people engage in bad faith. They weasel away, they dodge, they're like, ah, and they kind of bullshit. So like, I want to be able to like bite bullets and to like contend and be stress test. And yeah, I'll fully admit that the worldview that I have runs into a lot of problems. Um, and to fix all the kinks in that worldview would probably be impossible. I think any moral view it has its kinks that
And
are like nearly
I
impossible
mean,
to.
on my side, it's like, why don't the Western world, that is. I mean, because some of these Eastern worlds, some places in China, some places in Thailand, they'll eat dogs, they'll eat cats, they'll eat horses, right? A while back, I think something like Wendy's or Burger King or one of the I don't know which one, but was accused of selling horse meat.
Hmm.
Um, so like the whole idea becomes: are there animals that I wouldn't want to eat because I think that it's too sentient, right? Because you can flip it back onto me. Like, am I down to eat horses? Am I down to eat elephants?
Yeah, so that was the thing
Right?
too, is I was fully fine with you stress testing me, but something I see with a lot of meat eaters is like a cognitive dissonance of sorts almost, where it's like, where do they draw the line? Like some meat eaters draw the line of like, oh yeah, I'll eat cows, I'll have a hamburger, but it's like so morally abhorrent if you were to eat a dog. So then it's like, oh, is it okay for us to like slaughter and kill cows, but if I want to beat my dog,
Why
you
I
think I should
s-
be arrested? So I feel like there's logical inconsistency here
yeah.
in the meat eater view. There's inconsistencies in all moral views. And I think that so I watched a video like a lot of my influence are there's a it's mostly from vegans, but I'm not vegan. But I borrow the vegan arguments from Vegan Gains and
You
Alex
don't think that
O'Connor.
that the bacteria that make up you don't think that the bacteria that make cheese deserve a life?
Nah, fuck the bacteria. Cheese is
Fuck.
too tasty. I'm eating the cheese. Fuck those bacteria.
The probiotics, yeah.
So you want to know the ultimate gotcha is if I subscribe to the worldview that everything is conscious, I run into a huge contradiction of like, am I even allowed to step on the floor? Does
Well,
that hurt the floor's
right.
feelings?
Well, that's why I brought up the
Yeah.
like how many chickens is worth a human or how many cockroaches is worth a human because we have to admit that there are animals that are superior to other animals. Like dogs are definitely much more better for humans than chickens when it comes to using what they can do intellectually. Because like dogs, they can be used to sniff out bombs. Dogs can be used to play fetch. Dogs are companions. Dogs can help the blind people. There's all these things that dogs can do with their consciousness.
Hmm.
So that's one reason why I don't do dogs because they actually have proved themselves. And not only that, but another factor of it is I always like to use the question of if it was bigger, would it try to kill me?
Yeah.
So like if a cockroach is bigger, it would try to fucking eat me. If a chicken was bigger, it would try to eat me. If a dog was bigger, I don't think it would try to eat me.
So I have a question for you. Like, so it
If
seems like
if a
you
cat was
have the
bigger, it would try to eat me. So I do think that I'm more down to eat cats. But the reason why I don't want to eat cats is because their meat to body ratio isn't that high, and they're much more useful in eating. When cats go out there and eat like moles, or they go out there and eat rabbits, or and they help keep the population in check. So that's one reason I don't
so
eat cats is because their meat isn't that good.
I have a question for you.
If cat meat was yummy, I'd eat cats. And I haven't really tried, but from my understanding, people that have eaten cats, they say it's not really that
Do
good.
you think do you think it's immoral to like slaughter a dog or like kill a dog? Do you think that's
I mean,
immoral?
if we kill a dog that with a condition of that the dog like bit someone, yeah,
Mm.
we have to put down the dog.
Nope, just a dog
Just a
halfway
dog.
through its life, you just kill it. Do you think that's
Yeah,
immoral?
I think so. I don't think it's I think it's kind of it's not warranted. It kind of shows signs that the
It,
person doesn't really have any.
but it's
I mean, it's an indication of sociopathy or psychopathy when people start toying with animals.
okay. So then, what's the difference? Why would it be immoral to do that to a dog but not a cow, in your view? And I'll let you
Because
answer.
like I said, dogs are superior. They have a lot more potential. Now,
So
I'm not
then,
trying to say I'm down to eat cats or not, right? But what I'm
mhm.
saying is that the utility of cats versus dogs is dogs are much more superior. There's no bomb sniffing cats, really, right?
If there was a human with the in like the capability, like this human was born, for lack of a better word, like retarded or mentally deficient in some way.
An
That
L shaped chromosome where they have developmental disabilities where they're staying at they look like they're age 2 months old for the rest of their life until they die at 6 years or so. I have met those conditions before in my clinicals. Yeah,
So this human
yeah,
has a capacity because you like one of the reasons you gave was like, oh well, dogs can actually help us. That like they can like sniff bombs, they like assist
yeah. As
humans,
a
so they
species,
get a
they've
pet.
earned as the species they've earned my respect. Yeah.
So what if a human had the like capacity like trait equalized to that of like a cow? Do you think it would then be okay
There's
to
still
eat them?
I'm still a speciesist. I'm still I
Yes,
believe
okay,
in
yeah.
right, and I don't know why there's that like self shame against being on the team human.
Yeah, so if
I
your
am on
thing
team
is
human. I
being
don't know if you're on
speciesist,
team human.
so
I
I'm on team human, but I have this principle of consciousness that can override it in certain areas that I haven't fully. Because I'm still allegiant to humans. Like obviously, like with the like, oh, is 1,000 chickens for a human? I'm not gonna be like kill the human, save the chickens. I'm not like one of those radical people that are like super like tree huggy and like my allegiance is still to humans at the end of the day. And if you're speciesist, then you kind of don't run into that problem. I
yeah.
don't think we should be speciesist, but so you don't run into the problem that my worldview runs into.
Right. For some reason you have to like pretend like you're not a human and then have a worldview of you not being a human, and it's we are both human, and that we are a species that's rare because of our self-reflective quality. There's not very many animals out there that can get depression, that can get anxiety, that can get self-reflective uh, consciousness. And so animals that have that self-reflection uh,
Mhm.
tend to be, I don't really want to fuck with them. So
Yeah.
when it comes to dogs, they have personalities. They actually can learn. They can get tricks. They actually are able to have a social exchange with us. So I think you would benefit a lot by reading the social contract, because the social contract
Sure.
explains why don't we just kill each other, and it explains
Yeah.
like the agreement that humans had to make with each other, that we don't even have to believe in the same religion, we don't have to come from the same cloth, but we have to have these agreements of how to behave with others, and
Oh,
when is it okay to steal from each other.
I'll try to. It's for me. It's so low on the priority because I have like 20 books that I have on my shelf that I want to read. I have a whole bunch of articles. Brill has sent me a whole bunch of interesting stuff about politics because I'm very fascinated by politics.
So what's your quota? Are you doing a book a month, or what's your quota right now?
I wanted to do a book a month. I've fallen heavily behind on it recently, but I still, even though I've fallen behind on my quota for reading books, I've still been doing a lot of research on the levels primarily and the psychological development of that aspect
I
because
recommend
that's
books,
been
man, because books is
fascinating.
going to give you a lot of this articulation you need. You know, a lot of this,
Yeah.
a lot of this knowledge that me or Brill or other people have is. I wasn't born this way. I had to listen to over 50 different books that explain these things.
Yeah.
But we're almost at 2 hours and 15 minutes, so I wanted to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, me too. This was a good conversation though. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you wanted to mention before we close this up?
Um, not
The
really
only
that I
thing we
can think
haven't
of.
talked about is your lack of hobbies. Because I remember you
Yeah.
had mentioned you want to talk about ethics. We got deep into ethics. We talked about your vegetarianism. We talked a little about the U language. We talked about you getting into YouTube. But your lack of hobbies, I just think you got to do that whoop method. You got to be like, you wish that you did more books, and you got to start doing a
Well,
10
it's
minutes every day kind of a thing.
it's more the lack of non-intellectual hobbies. Any hobby that I have all kind of ties back to knowledge in some form,
So
and
do
I
you do
need
push-ups? Like what type of exercises do you do that are not intellectual?
I work out a little bit. That's a hobby I want to start. I want to get back into working out because I've been dieting a lot. I lost 50 pounds, and then now I want to go to the gym and like work out, start getting fit because that's a good aspect. that
So
to improve.
it's you do a lot of this I want to language, but not any of this like I've done or I'm doing. So I
Yes.
think what you have to do is you have to do it first, and then you can tell
Yeah.
people what you're doing. Like for
Well,
example, I can tell you I keep track of all the push-ups I do this entire year, and I've done over
I saw, I
17,000
saw
push-ups.
you do like 100 on average per day. I was like looking at
Yeah,
your
last
graphs.
month I did the most per day. I did 117 push-ups every single day. So it's doing and not just thinking, because I think what's
Yeah.
happening is you're doing over self-reflection of over reflection of like, oh no, what I'm eating had a life and a family, and that's bad, and then like completely
Yeah.
thinking, and then spending all of your energy on stuff that doesn't really give you much in return.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Because well, it's also a time management factor because I work a lot and then I just don't have enough time to do all the things I
If
want
you
to
want
do.
to, you'll find a way. You just have to want to
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
right? Because if there's things in your life that you really, really want to do, like diet soda, you're going to do it even if you know you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But there are things that you know you should and you don't do. So you could you've done the Atomic Habits book before, right?
Yes, and I want to reread it.
Well, I do
Beautiful
think that
book.
you got to do this like habit purchasing. Habit purchasing is where like you have to do 100 push-ups before you can drink a soda. Maybe not
Oh,
that amount,
yeah. I've done stuff like that. Yeah.
but it's you have to be more accountable to yourself. You actually have to do what you say you're going to do, and the less you do it, the more you just get away with
Yeah.
uh, pretending like you're going to do it but then never do, and it that
No, I do that. I
increases.
For me, I'll be like, oh, I have to read 10 pages before I want to do this thing that's like a pleasure activity.
Right.
And I can't do leisure time or I can't do brainless activity of like just watching TV or playing video games until I first read 10 pages.
So
And I
before
bet
so before I talk to you in the future, I guess I hope that you can start having an actual quota for working out, whether or not it's a number of push-ups every day on average, or maybe it's how many books you're doing per month. Like the next time I talk to you, I hope that you're not going to keep telling me what you want to do and tell me what you've
and
done.
tell you what I have done. Yes,
Yeah,
I will. I will.
there
This,
we go.
I'm telling you, I'm got a lot of potential. I just need to harness it and take action. I know I can accomplish great things. What exactly they will be, I'm not sure of, but I
Right.
want to. I
You
want
have
to
to
do
have
them.
that.
Yeah.
It's the narrative. It's the narrative that you have to improve on. The self talk that you can do this. I think a lot of people get lazy and procrastinate because they haven't convinced themselves that they even have a chance, so then they don't try. For example, if you don't think you have a chance to make a YouTube channel that's successful, then you won't try because you don't even believe in your chances of getting a successful YouTube video
Mhm.
or channel. But you have to believe in your ability to have a chance.
Yeah.
And if you don't think you have a chance, then you won't try. So you have to understand that you have to have some mediocrity experience so that way you can start learning the failures. But that's what I'm learning. I'm learning a bunch of stuff as I'm making these videos, and people are telling me I got to do timestamps. I got to cut this out, cut that out. I got to make shorts. I got to do this. I got to have some sort of thing on the screen to make it more interesting. Maybe do subtitles and all this. But I wanted to wrap this up, and then we can talk a little bit more. But
Well, we'll talk again sometime soon, very likely.
all right, I'm
I
gonna stop
enjoyed talking
recording.
to you.